The USA is on the verge of collapse. I'm in my early 30s and pretty much all of my friends from high school are either living with their parents still or are living alone and struggling. I don't know anyone my age who has a comfortable life with a house and can pay all their bills. We all came from middle-class suburban families. Most of us went to college. We ate our veggies and prayed to Jesus. And I know way more people are even worse off. Homeless camps are set up at every overpass in my city. It was rare to see a homeless person where I live when I was a kid. Now they're everywhere. It can't be their fault. It's not a bootstraps problem. I get the sense something really big is about to go down. Housing and cost of living is off the charts expensive. You need at least 2 high-paying incomes to buy a house now. Corpos snatch them up and rent them out at a huge markup. There is no way any of this is sustainable. Everyone pretends they're fine. No one is actually fine except for the boomers with juicy pensions who pretend like they're just better at working than everyone else. Part of me wishes the collapse would start now so we can get it over with. But I know it won't be pretty. I wish there was a way to salvage everything without anything catastrophic happening. But I've thought about it back to front. There's no other way. There just isn't. I think you are much further down the road in the US, but even in the UK I see the signs. The cost of living versus salary is ridiculous. I look back 21 years to when I finished university, which was free. My friends and I all had cars, could rent whole houses, with a partner, and used to regularly go on holidays. Australia, Southeast Asia, etc. Most were homeowners by their mid-20s. About 2005 that stopped. House prices almost doubled in my city. Suddenly we had people owning 5 to 10 houses on buy-to-let mortgages. 2008 came and salaries haven't increased since. My wife, a research scientist, earns the same wage she did in her government research job as she did back then. The staff they recruit no longer rent houses. These are 28-year-old PhD holders living like I did as an 18-year-old. They have tens of thousands in debt from their education and are paying effectively 40% marginal tax on earnings over £25k. Add in rent and bills and people are working full-time with no money left over. WTF. I am hoping for massive societal change on a global scale and a transition into a resource-based economy. I am aware this is very unlikely to happen within my lifetime. But I still hope. The collapse has already begun. It isn't gonna look like Armageddon nuclear apocalypse, but more like the start as end of convenience. Once common things will luxuries. A little at a time. I stayed living with my parents until I was 28, mostly due to a natural disaster that wiped out housing and employment by a huge amount. But I also had 2 little kids and an aging grandma. The multi-generational household was a great experience for our family. The problem was that when I did move out, it was into a man's home and he had inflated his worth to me beforehand. He quit his job and slowly drained me of everything I had worked for. He was 35 and still getting bills paid by his dad. I escaped him, but not without significant damage to my credit score. The following years were a struggle to balance my mental health and finding a work-home life balance. That was 2015, and that's when I learned that "fake it till you make it" is the lie that my generation believed was the key to success. I'm currently working 3 jobs. None at min wage, but I wouldn't call high earners either. I've been barely getting by for months and now I'm not. 50+ hours of work across 3 jobs and I can barely pay rent with 1 monthly paycheck. I sincerely hope that something gives soon. Educated persons with work experience shouldn't be scraping pennies and working side hustles to survive. I'm not out here working extra jobs to build my kids' future. I'm doing it to make sure we are surviving in the present. I have had this same feeling of dread for the past 5 to 6 years. But when I look at things as objectively as possible, I can pinpoint 9/11 as the beginning of the end. At first it was a barely perceptible shift. But it seems to have accelerated since the 2020 presidential campaign started. Social codes are breaking down at breakneck speed. And I've found that the explanation for almost every dumb decision made by those in power can be found by following the money trail. I do believe we are on the verge of societal collapse. Because the status quo is failing so many people. Part of me wants a housing crash. I fully believe we are living in a bubble economy that is just waiting to burst. Indeed. The sad thing is, they'll work extremely hard to maintain this status quo as long as they possibly can. They aren't going to try to fix this. They're going to grind our generation into dust for as long as they can and then probably expat to other, wealthy, stable, socialist countries and leave us to pick up the pieces in the ruins they leave behind. So most likely the oncoming collapse won't actually happen for years. The Bronze Age collapse occurred over many years. Like 50 to 100 years. It was almost imperceptible to those living in it. It was preceded by a period of prosperity akin to a golden age. It was succeeded by a dark age, where we lost much advancement and then stagnation happened. The fall of the Roman Empire occurred over many years. Like 50 to 100 years. It was almost imperceptible to those living in it. It was preceded by a period of prosperity akin to a golden age. It was succeeded by a dark age, where we lost much advancement and then stagnation happened. The fall of modern society is occurring over many years. And likely started a decade or two ago at the very least. Most consider the 50s to maybe 80s to have been a golden age of prosperity. Our children will live in a dark age, having grown up as the empire fell. We're experiencing similar events that happened right before the fall of the Roman Empire and the French Revolution. Something's gonna give. The only way is with degrowth economics. Priorities social spending on people, not that trickle-down economics. Bro, I am not even from the US and here also things are kinda bleak. Just good. OL richer gets richer while poorer gets poorer. You just need to be more patient and wait for the wealth to trickle down. I'm sure it's right around the bend. Have you seen the housing situation in Hong Kong? Over there they live in apartments with like 6 other people in cages. In some extremes, or they end up with parents or go on long waiting lists for government homes. I wish there was something coming, but I just don't know. Welcome to the same reality in Italy for the past 50 years. Unaffordable housing and living with your parents. We also have rampant inflation that has been underreported for decades now, and real wages have fallen dramatically in the last 40-ish years. Now the inflation is heating up due to a variety of factors, and employers are acting like they would rather watch everyone starve to death rather than pay them a single penny more. I'm just saying, leaving a failed conquest in Afghanistan is historically a good indicator that it's all going to fall apart within a few years. That is why we left in 2009. My husband had the EU passport and we took advantage. Never have I looked back and regretted it. But it has been like watching a horror show from a distance, and I feel for you all. I want to help. How can I help besides still exercising my right to vote? My father is a boomer but still got fucked in every way the American government could fuck him. My mother died from cancer because she couldn't get adequate access to healthcare. I recently went home to visit my dad and I had to heartbreakingly tell him I can't help him if he gets sick. There is no way I could pay for American healthcare out of pocket. He's been told despite being 69 that he doesn't qualify for Medicare. I worry every fucking day. Realistically, the actually end result here is one of roughly 3 outcomes. The death of the lower, poverty class and the maiming of the middle class. This is the most likely and is what is currently happening. Basically, it boils down to that cost of living outpaces the income of the poverty class who then collapse under the financial burden. This in turn causes a domino effect burdening the lower class, who then collapse because the economy took a hit from the poverty class collapsing. The lower class then collapse, which then dominoes into burdening the middle class. The middle class are financially maimed and usually only survive due to inherited assets or assets they got beforehand. The upper, high, elite and super elite class all have enough assets to come out relatively unscathed. Even if they invested a ton into, say, retail, they spread their money into a whole range of assets and can easily sell off their retail at a loss and come out fine. Death of leadership. This is the least likely to happen and frankly what the wealthy in government fear the most by far. That the lower, poverty and middle class will unite and say, fuck it, let's murder them all. And they kill every member of government they can as well as some wealthy folks and pretty much remake the government. This is also realistically the only way the US is going to escape the absurd amount of corruption that exists in their government. The population shrink effect. This one is actually a guaranteed event in the future. So plan accordingly. Basically birth rates across the board paired with superbugs becoming a norm. Reduce populations at such a rate that all economy across the world take a major dive and it causes pretty much the global economy to collapse. The lower, poverty, and middle class who are forced to be present in public due to financial burdens will be the first to go. This actually is a real thing. Birth rates are going to take a major nosedive in a couple generations and sperm, egg counts are already declining at an alarming rate. Then add in that superbugs are 100% going to outpace medical science. Ask any doctor, they will confirm this. Yeah, I hate to paint a bleak picture, but enjoy it while you can. Middle class is someone who can live as normal without working for at least 6 months. We are working class, I'm afraid. Dash. Of course some things can be salvaged. Never count our human decency and ingenuity. But would still recommend owning firearms and knowing how to defend yourself. Simply. Because there are certainly some bad people out there.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.